Paadam Kutukudam Malayalam FM 104.6 Karam Kekam.
We have a special guest with us in the studio. He has worn many hats before. He was a Minister for Transport, he was a Minister for Immigration, Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety, and also served as the Deputy Leader of the House. Michael Wood. He is currently the MP for Mount Roskill. Michael is with us today to share a bit about himself, his plans, his party's plans to our country, New Zealand. Let us hear straight from Michael. Welcome, Michael, to the show.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here with you at the PlanetFM studios.
Thank you. Michael, we have seen you have got into the sales career, maybe from your teenage. And I'm sure you have acquired the sales acumen to a large extent. Do you think one of the salespeople's quality is empathy? Do you think that has helped you to serve the people in a better way?
Well, yes, I worked for a number of years in retail, and I remember it really well and quite fondly. I remember my final year at school, my mother was taking me to get some nice clothes at the end of that year, and I needed a summer job. And so I said to the manager of the store, hey, it's been nice to get your clothes. Have you got any jobs over summer? And she did, and she liked the fact that I asked her. And so I then worked for a number of years. The company was called Hugh Wright's, which was a very well-known men's clothing store. It's closed down now. And that was a good job. Helped me save up money for university as a young man. And yeah, you're right, it taught me a lot of skills actually. And I would agree with you that, look, for someone who's in sales, but really for any job you're doing where you're dealing with other people, empathy is hugely important.
Yeah.
The ability to see things from the other person's perspective.
Correct.
To understand what's important for them, what their problems might be, what their hopes might be, and then how you can help them with that. And yeah, that's I think probably the best people in retail and sales really get that.
Yeah.
But in lots of other fields I've worked in, I worked as a union organiser for many years, and that was about talking to people, understanding what was going on in their lives at work and how you could help things to be better.
Great. Is that where you picked up the negotiation skills? Is that something which you have?
Yes, I worked for a number of years, specifically as a negotiator, actually. That was for the finance sector union. So I represented many bank workers, and my job was to negotiate with companies like Westpac in the banking sector to negotiate fair pay and conditions for the workers. And so you learn something from everything you do. At least I think that's the way you should approach things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And some of those skills have been really useful in politics. And as you say, empathy. Yeah, what else are we here for as politicians? If it's not to try and understand what it's like for ordinary people, to really have an appreciation for the issues that make a difference. You know, the old saying is, walk a mile in someone else's shoes. Try and understand things from a perspective that might not be your own, and then you're much better placed to serve people and to help them.
Great. Another thing we have noticed is Michael Wood's name has been echoed as a competent person. Very glad to know that. However, like in any other job, I'm sure you might also have come across different challenges in your career. How you handled those challenges, because our listeners would like to listen and get motivated to see how people handle challenges in their career.
Well, it's something that you need to do in any career, I think, and in any part of life, really. No one's life and no one's career is always smooth sailing, always on an upwards curve. In nearly any significant career or marriage or relationship, you'll encounter difficult patches in your life or your work. And I've had that in every role that I've been in. Being competent is really important. Knowing your job, working hard to understand the issues, to build up your skills to deal with them. Those are all really important technical skills. But when you hit the rough patches, and look, people who are listening know that I had some really rough patches this year. The most difficult period I've ever had to deal with in any of my working life. You really need a couple of things at those times. One is a real sense of determination.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you go through those hard patches, some people decide to walk away, and maybe sometimes that's the best thing for people to do. But if you want to keep going, you've got to say, right,
I'm going to stay.
I'm going to stay, and I'm going to ride this out, and I'm going to push on. And that's certainly what I'm doing in my role. So you need that determination and that resilience. But the second thing I would say to anyone that you really need to get through those really tough patches, you do need your support network.
Great.
And because what really helps you get through when you're at those real low points, and maybe you feel like, people are coming after you, and sometimes in politics, that's true. You need your friends, your supporters. In my case, I had great support from my colleagues, people in my own electorate of Mount Roskill, my local support team, my family, and they're the people who really encourage you and just give you the strength to, to get back in the saddle.
Incredible support system around you. Yeah.
And I say to anyone, I often meet with young people who are thinking about careers in leadership, and I see amazing skills with many of these young people, and you always want to encourage them. But that's something I always say: make sure. Maybe it's just one or two people you're really close to, or maybe it's a bigger network, but make sure you've got some people with you so that they're there when you need them. Yeah. And also make sure that you're that person who can help and support your friends when they're having those difficult times in their lives and their jobs.
Great. When you talk about the support system and the network, is that something you cultivated from your childhood, from your teenage, or from your current profile? Have you managed or cultivated that support system?
I probably wouldn't quite use the word cultivated, because for me it's not something that you go and do for a deliberate sort of purpose. For me, politics is very much about relationships. And if you want to, but particularly, I come from the progressive side of politics, from the centre left, and ultimately what we believe in our heart of hearts is that we make progress when people come together and campaign for positive change. That's what the Labour Party was born out of, and it's what we still believe in. And so in politics, it's always just sort of been natural for me that you're sometimes sitting there at your office, doing your own work and your own research and writing out speeches and that kind of thing. But actually, one of the most important parts of the jobs is building your relationships. And that happens, it sort of needs to happen organically, and it needs to be real. Organic. And sometimes that's just over years. It's getting to know people, understanding their background and what's important for them, even if you don't always agree with them, and building real meaningful relationships and working with those people who share your values and your vision. And those are the people that really help you get through and help you to get things done as well.
Great. Taking from that relationship again, can you share with us about your family, how your family support, what kind of a support system works between you and your wife? I understand you complement each other in your career. So can you explain a bit about your family also?
Well, for me, like nearly everyone, your family is your real bedrock and is the most important thing in your life. So I'm married to Julie. We've been married for 18 years. I've got 3 lovely boys, and we've lived in Mount Roskill for all of that time. And Julie's also involved in politics. Many people will be aware she's an elected member of the Auckland Council. And that creates a challenge in one sense, because we both have really, really busy lives. We both
schedules,
get pulled in all sorts of directions, and many evenings we'll have events and obligations that we have to go to. And so you've got to be really good organisers to manage that.
and especially to meet the open houses for your boys. You
that's
have
right.
to really juggle between each other.
We do, and we have some help with that as well, and babysitters and parents and neighbours and others. But one of the benefits of it is we do understand and have an appreciation for what the other is doing, because we're both working in politics.
Great.
And we both share a common sense of purpose. So I really support and value what she does in her role on council, and I think at least that I know she supports it. I think she values the work that I do as a parliamentarian as well, and that means that you're there to support each other and help out. You try and find the right balance of being interested in each other's career and offering a supportive word here and maybe providing advice.
Yeah.
But respecting the boundaries and letting you each
other,
get on with your own job and respecting that maybe you'll sometimes do things in slightly different ways as well.
Yeah.
So that's a real blessing in life, and certainly for my career, it's it's been one of the things that's enabled me to do the things that I've done.
Great. What kind of a Michael we can see outside the work? What could be your unwinding thing?
Yeah, well, there are a number of things that are important for me in life that help me to stay connected and unwind, etc. I mean, I like working. I work long hours, and I actually enjoy that. I get a lot of satisfaction out of it.
Yeah.
And I tend to quite like being busy, even when I'm not in my job. There are some people who just enjoy not doing much, and I sometimes do that. But if I have free time, I like to be active generally. So I spend a lot of time in the garden. Mm-hmm. The garden's usually a bit of a mess. I've got roses out the front and a veggie garden out the back, and I try and keep them both going as much as I can. Yeah. And I just sort of like being connected with nature and with the earth. Yeah. I try and get out and walk when I can. I like to. Our jobs as politicians. Well, I'll tell you, everywhere we go, people feed us, and we spend a lot of our time sitting down. So you have to think really carefully about keeping active and moving if you want to keep your health in reasonable shape. So in Mount Roskill, I've often walked around our beautiful Waikowhai coast, which is a beautiful bush area around Hillsborough and Linfield. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of the tracks got damaged in the cyclone earlier this year. So you might sometimes see me walking through Keithay Park and places like that. I like doing that.
Like to burn your calories?
Yeah, that's right. I've got the little app on my phone which tells me how many steps I've done and that kind of thing. Yeah. Like to spend, obviously, time with my kids as much as I can. Yeah. And that's limited in these jobs, but you have to try and value that time. I try and, when I get in after work, even if it's just a short time, have a little chat about how their day has gone. And look, the other big component for me there is my personal faith, and that's important for me. And again, it sustains you in a difficult and busy life, and gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of direction. So I'm a Christian. I belong to the Anglican Church, and for a long time that's been really important for me, and it gives me a sense of my own value and place in the universe. And of course, people with a whole range of different faiths and perspectives find that really important, and it's the same for me as well.
Great. We have also seen you have got a dream to be a cricket commentator. Have you started working on that, or how is it going?
Well, that's dead right. If I could just choose to do something and didn't have to worry about being paid and all of that kind of thing, going around the world and watching Test cricket and commentating on it would be something of a dream. I do remember, we had the World Test Championship a few years ago, the one before the one this year, and New Zealand won it. Yeah. And I did at one point get asked to, on some radio show or some media outlet, they played the last couple of balls and they got me to commentate it on air, and I quite enjoyed that. Okay. And I thought I did an okay job. Yeah. That I've loved cricket ever since I was a kid. I wasn't a great player, and I've played a couple of times in the parliamentary cricket team, which we have. So
you were in the team.
Yeah, so not a great player. I won't make any big claims there, but I've always loved cricket, particularly Test cricket.
Cricket.
The longer, the better. Yeah. Very happy that it's back on free-to-air television this year, and I'll be obviously watching the One-Day World Cup that's coming up pretty soon as well. Yeah. But that's just always been a great passion for me. And it's one of the things I love and share, of course, with a lot of our Indian community. It's always a great thing to talk about.
Correct. Has any of your boys picked up that from their dad?
Not yet, unfortunately. Sometimes over summer we have a little backyard game, but none of them have actually picked up and started joining a club or a team or anything yet. But I'll keep gently encouraging that where I can. Yeah. Hopefully they're more talented and able than their father.
Great. Michael, you have been perceived as a boy next door from a community point of view, because mostly your electorate is a very diversified electorate. I think around 250 plus ethnicities live in and around Auckland, and most of the community events happens in the weekend. How you skews your time, or have you managed your time during the weekends to attend to all these community events? It's a great skill.
Well, you're right about Mount Roskill. We have a huge number of cultures, languages, faith traditions in our community. And what is interesting about it is that the Mount Roskill of 40 years ago was exactly the opposite. That was probably one of the least diverse places in New Zealand. And it's changed hugely since the 1990s. And it's one of the great things about the place we live. You know, my kids go to school with kids from every corner and continent of the world.
Yeah.
They don't even think about it. That's just the world they live in.
Yeah.
And they learn from their friends. They learn about different traditions. They value the diversity of their friends. It's not, sometimes I think for those of us for whom it's been newer and older generations, it's been an adjustment as our societies become more diverse. For my kids, it's just the water that they swim in.
Yeah.
And that's great. And Mount Roskill is the New Zealand of the future in that sense. As a local MP, that's a wonderful thing. And it's something I'm so proud of about our area and the way that different communities and cultures connect and learn to live with each other peacefully and learn from one another. It does mean there are a lot of events to go to. and that's a part of being an MP. If you want to be a good local MP, you need to be present on the ground. You need to be at those things that are important for people. And people need, I talk to so many people, from India and other places, and they say, wow, I can come to New Zealand and I can meet my MP. And in some other parts of the world, that's impossible. There'd be 20 armed guards and cavalcade and security.
Yeah.
And we need to keep that in New Zealand. It's one of the best things about our democracy. So I value doing that and prioritise it. It can be a juggle. You can't quite say yes to everything. Sometimes you've got to say, no, sorry, I'm full up this weekend, but let me know about the next event.
Yeah.
Sometimes our new forms of technology, sometimes if you can't go, you can give a little Zoom greeting or something like that. And sometimes you do in those weekends, you do need to look ahead and carve out time for your family as well. And sometimes just be a little bit strict about that and just be upfront with people. Say, hey, sorry, I had my boy's birthday last weekend. Of course, that comes first.
Absolutely.
But at other times, your job as an MP is to be there and to connect, and I get a lot of value from that.
Great. We can see that you were the MP for Mount Roskill from 2016. Can you share some of the concerns you have seen for your electorate, and what are your plans to address those concerns?
Well, look, there have been a range of issues over the years, and I remember my first campaign in 2016. The number one issue at that time was housing. We had a housing crisis in New Zealand, lots of people not able to get into a home of their own, lots of people in overcrowded conditions. At that time, the previous national government was cutting the number of state houses. And we've still got work to do. But as I look around Mount Roskill, I'm actually really proud of the work that our Labour government's done there. We're building huge numbers of houses right across New Zealand and hundreds of new houses in Mount Roskill. We're beginning to get on top of that issue for the first time in decades. We're building more houses now since the 1950s. So that was the big issue. It was the big campaign issue when I got elected. And you never do these things overnight, but we're well on our way there. Community safety, always been a big issue. And I know that at the moment, a lot of people are feeling that concern. But I've got to say, in 2016, when I campaigned, it was a big issue as well. So, yes, we have had a real hump of, particularly the ram raid offences and things. But we had a bit of a hump that year as well. It does sometimes come in these waves. And my big commitment in that 2016 campaign was to get a police station back in Mount Roskill. Because under the previous national government, they'd closed the local police station, and people really liked the idea that they could come to a local police station, talk to someone, raise an issue and get a response, and that was gone. I had meeting after meeting with the previous Minister of Police, and we got a police station back in Mount Roskill that's open to the public, upgraded, big facility. So really, really proud that we were able to achieve that. But we know there's more to do. We know we've had real issues. For people who've been victims of crime, it's really upsetting. And so we've been doing a lot of work in recent times, both to build the police numbers up, but to also look at some of the other targeted responses to really make sure people are responsible for their actions, but also to really deal with the root causes of crime, because that's ultimately how we keep as many people safe as possible. And probably the third major issue over the years, going back to 2016 but ongoing, transport. We all know in Auckland, we all get frustrated when we have to sit in that traffic and waste our time. It's so annoying. And for our government, the big drive there has been to improve public transport, build a modern, reliable, mass rapid transit system.
Yeah.
And we've made some good progress there, but there's much more to do. And it's one of the reasons I've been a huge supporter of the light rail project over the years. If we just build more roads, we'll just have more roads, which will get more congested.
Yeah.
The only way in a big city you fix these issues is by giving people high quality, frequent public transport. I use the local buses myself, the 25 and 27, and I want to get that public transport for my community in Mount Roskill, but to have a proper linked up network for the whole city of Auckland.
Yeah.
We're making that progress, but there is
Great.
much more work to do there that I really want us to see that through.
Absolutely. On that note, Michael, what would be your plans or your party's plans for the next 3 years?
Yeah, well, we're campaigning hard now, 5 weeks to the election, and we are passionate and hungry as the Labour Party to win another 3 years and to carry on our work. It's been a tough few years for New Zealand. We've dealt with COVID, the floods and the extreme weather, particularly in Auckland. Cost of living has been put a lot of households under real pressure over that time. And so our role as a Labour Party has always been to look after the many, not just the privileged few. And so as we go into the next 3 years, we want to, for ordinary people who have been challenged by those issues, we want to be there to give them practical support and help people to get through that. So things like, over the weekend we announced our new dental policy, phasing in free dental care for Kiwis, starting with under 30s, to take some of that cost pressure off and really help with people's health and well-being. Things like the taking off that $5 prescription charge, dealing with cost of living, but just meaning that if you're a financially strapped household, you don't have to worry about getting your medicines. You can get the medicines to keep you and your family well and maybe prevent you from having to go to hospital later on.
Yeah.
So those sort of policies really point to the kind of New Zealand that we believe in. It's one where we support people through those challenges. We try and support every family to have the opportunities in life that they deserve. One of the policies I'm really proud of over the last few years that we want to push on with is how we support our young people into decent work. We've really boosted the apprenticeship scheme. Now, we talked about some of those issues around crime earlier on.
Yes.
Well, if you take some of those kids, maybe 13, 14, 15, who are getting into theft and ram raids, and you get them into an apprenticeship where they learn skills, they develop pride, they have a career pathway.
Yeah, and they get engaged into something which they can look forward.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, you can say, throw them in prison and chuck away the key. But if you do that, sometimes people have got to go to prison, but to be honest, if you do that, a lot of the people who come out will go straight back into the same lifestyle. You get that kid into an apprenticeship, you change their life, and they'll go from hurting people to contributing to society. And it's our Labour government that during COVID, when employers were about to lay off all the apprentices, we came in, put the apprenticeship boost in place, and we've actually grown the number of apprenticeships by tens of thousands. That's Labour policy and Labour values in action.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff we want to roll out more. The final thing I'll say in terms of what do we want to do over the next few years, we've got to deal with those issues that are right in front of us and they're here and now, cost of living, issues around crime and community safety. But we've got to look at the long-term issues.
Yeah.
If we want to build a prosperous and decent country for everyone, and there's nothing much bigger than climate change. The one, I'm not a worrying person. I tend to just, what can I control? And I just try and manage that.
What is within our control is what we can,
But the one thing that does worry me when I think about my kids is climate change. And we saw how our communities were affected by the floods and the cyclone earlier this year. And if we don't take action, that gets worse for our kids and our grandkids. And so for us as a Labour government, we've made a really good start. The last 3 years, our policies like the Clean Car discount, the deals we've done with New Zealand Steel and Fonterra to reduce their emissions, those sorts of policies have actually started to reduce New Zealand's emissions. And our emissions are now lower than they've been for 10 years. And that's because of deliberate policies that we've put in place. So we need to keep pushing that along, keep reducing our emissions, play our part in reducing the impacts of climate change. And that will be one of the legacies we can leave to future generations. It's good for New Zealand as well. It's good for our international reputation and image, not just to be talking about being clean and green, but to be actually making it real. And I'll just say this really bluntly. That's at risk this election. All of the policies that we've put in place to lower our emissions will be cut by national enact. So I feel very passionately about making sure we get back in so we can carry on that work.
Great. Have you been to India, or is that something which you would like to do, to visit Kerala?
Unfortunately, I've never been able to get there. But I would love to.
Okay.
We talked before about life in Mount Roskill. It's one of the most strongly Kiwi Indian communities in all of New Zealand.
Yeah.
So every day I'm interacting with members of the Indian community. And I once had a teacher she was an art history teacher. I studied art history for a while. And what she said about India, she said, India is the whole world in one country. And that's always fascinated me, the idea of this place that has this ancient history,
Correct.
so many different cultures and languages that are indigenous to the country. And particularly I'm very close to many communities from the south of India, including the Malayali community. Yeah. Priyanka Radhakrishnan's a really good friend, so getting to Kerala at some stage would be a real priority when I get that opportunity to get to India.
You might know Kerala has been named as or marketed as God's own country, same as New Zealand. And the terrain is almost similar. The greeneries and the pastures are almost same as New Zealand.
Yeah, no, a beautiful place. And I know as well it's a place that has also been very progressive in a lot of its policies, real focus on education, for example.
Correct.
Some things that we can always learn from other places, and that's always really interested me as well.
That's a state with 99% literacy.
That was a statistic I was trying to remember. That's right.
Oh, thank you so much for having with us today, Michael. Thank you from Malayalam FM.
Thank you very much. Been a pleasure.